A once thriving civilization, the Zarvins are now on the brink of collapse. Their cities, once filled with light and life, are now battered by relentless enemy fire. In the skies above, their last defensive fleet disintegrates under the overwhelming assault of a ruthless alien empire. The air is filled with the desperate cries of their people, their frail bodies struggling to find shelter from the bombardment. Their technology is advanced, but their bodies are weak, unable to withstand the harsh physical demands of war. They are brilliant scientists and diplomats, but they have never been fighters. Their colonies, spread across nearby star systems, are under attack, falling one by one, with no hope of reinforcement. In their darkest hour, the Zarvins looked to their allies for help. These were the races who had once called them friends, partners in trade, and keepers of peace. But those alliances crumble like dust in the wind. The Galactic Council convenes, and their decision is swift and cruel. The Zarvins are labeled a lost cause. No resources, no aid, not even a word of comfort is sent. Cold calculations and self-preservation guide their decision. They abandon the Zarvins to their fate, deeming them unworthy of the effort or risk. Panic spreads like wildfire among the Zarvin people, who now see their friends turn their backs when they need them most. They feel the sting of betrayal deep in their hearts, realizing they are truly alone. Desperation sets in. With nowhere left to turn, the Zarvin leaders decide on a last, desperate measure. They transmit a distress signal, broadcasting on every channel across the galaxy. Their message is clear. We are the Zarvins. We face extinction. Our colonies burn, our children cry, and we beg for help. Whoever you are, wherever you are, if you have the means to save us, we plead for mercy. It's a cry for help from a race on the brink, a call echoing across the stars. They know their chances are slim, but they cling to this last thread of hope, praying that somewhere, someone will hear them. The signal spreads like a whisper through the void. Alien civilizations hear the call, but the response is not what the Zarvins had hoped for. In the war rooms of various star systems, the message is met with laughter and disdain. Some races view the Zarvins as pathetic, a cautionary tale of what happens to those too weak to defend themselves. Others see an opportunity to loot what remains, picking at the carcass of a dying race. The more powerful factions shrug and continue with their own plans, unaffected and uninterested. As days pass with no response, the Zarvin leaders face the grim reality. Their cries have gone unheard or ignored. Their hope dwindles, replaced by a cold acceptance of the fate that awaits them. But then, a response comes from a most unlikely source. On a small, blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, a group of humans receives the Zarvin signal. This coalition is not an official force, but a ragtag group of mercenaries, ex-soldiers, and volunteers. They gather in a dimly lit room, eyes fixed on the projection of the Zarvin plea. Among them stands Captain Marcus Thorne, a man hardened by war but still guided by a sense of justice. He listens intently to the message, his jaw tightening as he hears the desperation in the Zarvins' voices. He knows what it means to be abandoned, to be left for dead. He turns to his crew, who are watching with a mix of curiosity and doubt. Thorne doesn't hesitate. He knows the odds. A small force like theirs, with limited resources and outdated ships, has little chance against a powerful alien empire. But he also knows something else. Leaving a helpless race to die goes against everything they stand for. He speaks with conviction, laying out the mission and the dangers they will face. He appeals to their shared humanity, reminding them that they are not just fighters, but protectors. The room is filled with silence, and then, one by one, the crew members nod in agreement. They know this mission is near suicidal, but they also know they can't turn their backs. They choose to act, to become the light in a galaxy filled with darkness, to give hope where none exists. As the human ship prepares to depart, the crew is filled with a mix of determination and uncertainty. They know the odds are stacked against them, but they also know they have something the enemy does not, a resolve born from empathy, a willingness to stand up for what is right, no matter the cost. With engines roaring and weapons systems checked, they set a course for the Zarvin system, ready to face whatever dangers lie ahead. Because while the rest of the galaxy may have chosen to look away, They have decided to see, to hear, and to act. Captain Marcus Thorne stands at the center of the group, his eyes scanning the faces around him. Each member of this diverse crew has their own story, their own reason for being here. To his right, there's Rhea, a former soldier who left the military disillusioned by its politics, but still yearning to fight for something meaningful. Next to her, Dr. Samir Patel, an engineer who lost his family to a similar conflict and now seeks redemption by saving others. Across from them, Kira, a young scientist with a brilliant mind, whose passion for discovery is matched only by her desire to make a difference. The group also includes Donovan, a seasoned mercenary who has seen too much death but clings to a sense of honor, and Lily, a combat medic who believes every life saved is a victory against the cruelty of the universe. The crew gathers in a dimly lit briefing room, and the tension is palpable. The distress signal from the Zarvans still plays on a loop, echoing in their minds. The room is divided, voices clash as opinions flare. Donovan leans back, arms crossed, skeptical. He argues that it's not their fight, that the odds are insurmountable, and they have no obligation to throw their lives away for a cause that seems already lost. Others nod, sharing his concerns. They are few in number, with outdated equipment and little intel on the enemy's capabilities. But then, Rhea steps forward, challenging the pessimism. She speaks of their duty as human beings to stand up for the defenseless, to be more than just bystanders. She argues that if they ignore this call, they're no better than those who abandoned the Zarvans in the first place. Dr. Patel chimes in, reminding them that their forefathers faced impossible odds time and time again, and it was their courage and empathy that set them apart from the rest. Kira's voice is soft but steady as she says that if they can save even a few lives, it will be worth the risk. Thorne listens, letting the debate run its course. He understands their fears, they are valid. But he also knows that fear cannot be the reason to turn their backs. He finally speaks, his voice calm but firm. He talks about the principles that have always guided humanity: compassion, justice, the unwillingness to let the innocent suffer. He tells them that they are not just a ragtag group of fighters. They are a symbol of hope in a galaxy that has grown cold and indifferent. He reminds them that they have the power to make a difference, to show that there is still honor among the stars. It's not about winning a war, it's about saving lives, about doing the right thing when no one else will. The room falls silent. His words resonate deeply, and one by one the crew members nod, their doubts fading. They realize that they cannot ignore this call, that they must be the ones to act. With the decision made, they shift their focus to the mission ahead. Thorne outlines the plan with precision. They will have to reach the Zarvan homeworld undetected, navigating through hostile territory filled with enemy patrols and blockades. The route is perilous, but they have a few advantages. They will use old smugglers' paths known only to a few, relying on stealth and speed. The key is to stay off the enemy's radar, using guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver them. Once they reach the Zarvan system, they will need to locate the survivors, extract them quickly, and escape before the enemy can mount a full response. Every step is fraught with danger, but they know that surprise and cunning are on their side. With the plan set, the crew moves with urgency. They prepare their ship, checking every system, every weapon. They know they are outmatched in terms of technology and firepower, but they also know they have something the enemy does not: creativity, adaptability, and a fierce determination. They retrofit their ship, making modifications to enhance stealth and speed, reinforcing shields where they can. Donovan and Rhea run combat simulations, drilling the crew on various scenarios. Dr. Patel and Kira work on the medical bay, preparing for casualties and stocking up on supplies that might be needed for the Zarvans. The atmosphere is tense, every member focused on their task, knowing that any mistake could be fatal. The crew shares quiet moments, saying their goodbyes to loved ones, writing messages that may never be read. There's an unspoken understanding that this might be a one-way trip, but no one backs down. They share a final meal together, a tradition before any mission, and the weight of what they are about to do hangs heavy in the air. Yet there is also a sense of purpose, a resolve that binds them together. They know the risks, but they also know the stakes. Finally, the time comes. The engines hum to life, the ship's systems come online, and Captain Thorn takes his place on the bridge. The crew gathers, exchanging nods and glances. There's no need for more words, they all know why they're here. As the ship lifts off, leaving Earth behind, there's a mixture of anxiety and determination. They are heading into the unknown, a small force facing a vast, dangerous enemy. But they are ready. Ready to defy the odds, to prove that even in the darkest times, there are those who will fight for what is right. With a steady hand, Thorn gives the order to set a course for the Zarin system. The ship surges forward, propelled by the collective will of its crew. They know the dangers ahead, but they also know one simple truth: they cannot stand by and do nothing. Not when there are lives to save, not when they have the power to make a difference. They are human, and that means they fight, not just for themselves, but for everyone who needs them. The human ship emerges from hyperspace at the edge of the Zarin system, immediately faced with the grim sight of a battlefield. Enemy ships, heavily armed and numerous, patrol the area like vultures circling a dying prey. Captain Marcus Thorn and his crew know they're vastly outnumbered and outgunned, but they also know that stealth and strategy are their only options. Thorn gives the order to cut all non-essential systems and engage the stealth protocols. Their ship moves slowly, silently, threading through the debris fields and asteroid belts that litter the outskirts of the system, using them as cover. They monitor the enemy patrols closely, studying their movements, looking for patterns and gaps. The crew holds their breath as they pass dangerously close to one of the enemy's ships, relying on their minimal power signature and the natural cover of space. The tension is palpable, every second stretching into eternity. But the enemy doesn't detect them, their focus is elsewhere, patrolling for a different threat. Thorn knows they have a narrow window and pushes the ship forward, deeper into the system. The human crew finally reaches the Zarin homeworld, where they intercept a weak signal from the Zarin leadership, hidden in a fortified underground bunker. The humans send a secure message, identifying themselves and offering assistance. There is a long pause before a hesitant response comes back. The Zarin leaders, distrustful after being abandoned by everyone else, question their motives. Thorn responds with a concise explanation of their plan and their intention to save as many lives as possible. There's a moment of silence, and then the Zarin leader, a weary but resolute figure named Iraq, agrees. They have no choice. They must trust these humans if they want any hope of survival. With cooperation secured, the humans begin their approach to the Zarin city. The terrain is treacherous, the atmosphere thick with smoke and ash from the ongoing bombardment. Enemy patrols scour the skies and streets, searching for any survivors or resistance. Thorn orders the ship to fly low and fast, hugging the planet's surface to avoid radar detection. The humans use their knowledge of guerrilla tactics, taking advantage of every natural feature, every shadow, and every ruined building to stay out of sight. They know they are up against a formidable foe, but they also know that speed and unpredictability are their best weapons. The crew splits into smaller teams, moving on foot through the war-torn streets to reach the Zarin bunker. They encounter pockets of enemy soldiers, and each time, they use quick, decisive action to neutralize the threat before it can alert others. The humans move with a blend of caution and urgency, knowing that time is their greatest enemy. They reach the bunker entrance, where a Zarin guard, looking wary but hopeful, lets them inside. Inside they find a group of exhausted, frightened Zarvins, their faces reflecting both disbelief and relief that someone has finally come. Thorn quickly outlines the extraction plan, emphasizing the need for speed and silence. The Zarvins, still unsure but with no other choice, begin to follow the humans' lead. They move in groups, led by the humans, through the maze of destroyed buildings and smoke-filled streets. The rescue is going well until a scout team spots a large enemy force converging on their position. The enemy must have detected something amiss, and now they're coming in force to crush whatever remains of the Zarin resistance. Thorn knows they have no choice but to fight. He orders his crew to set up defensive positions and prepares for the inevitable clash. The enemy force is massive, their ships and soldiers advancing with lethal intent. The humans are heavily outnumbered, but they use their environment to their advantage, turning the ruins into a deadly maze. They set traps, create diversions, and strike hard and fast before disappearing back into the shadows. The enemy is confused and frustrated, unaccustomed to such tactics. The humans keep them off balance, always one step ahead, using the terrain and their ingenuity to counter the superior numbers. The battle reaches its peak as the enemy pushes harder, determined to break through. The humans, though tired and running low on ammunition, refuse to yield. They fight with a ferocity that surprises even themselves, driven by the knowledge that they are the Zarvan's last hope. The enemy commander, realizing his troops are being outmaneuvered, orders an all-out assault. The humans respond by unleashing their final, most daring move, a coordinated attack on the enemy's command center, using their last remaining explosives to disable the enemy's communications and command structure. The explosion sends shockwaves through the battlefield, and for a moment, everything is chaos. Seizing the opportunity, Thorn orders the immediate evacuation. The Zarvans are quickly loaded onto the ship, and the humans prepare to make their escape. The enemy forces, disoriented and leaderless, begin to fall back, but they're still numerous and determined. The human ship lifts off, racing toward the edge of the atmosphere, but the enemy is not giving up. They send fighters to intercept, and a fierce chase ensues. The humans use every trick they know, weaving through debris fields, dodging enemy fire, and using their ship's agility to outmaneuver their pursuers. The crew feels the strain, the tension mounting as enemy ships close in. The ship takes a hit, but they push forward, refusing to be caught. They reach the edge of the system, and with a final burst of speed, they engage the hyperdrive. The enemy tries to follow, but it's too late. The human ship disappears into hyperspace, leaving the enemy behind. They've made it, but only just. The crew breathes a sigh of relief, but they know the danger isn't over yet. They set a course for their secret safe haven, knowing they must remain vigilant until they reach their destination. They have won this round, but the mission is far from over. The crew knows they have saved many lives today, but they also know that there are still challenges ahead. Their resolve is strong, and their determination is unshaken. They have proven that even against impossible odds, they will not back down. They will fight for what is right, no matter the cost. The human ship bursts through the atmosphere of the Zarvan homeworld, narrowly slipping past the enemy blockade. Engines roaring, they push forward, threading their way through a gauntlet of enemy vessels now scrambling to pursue. The enemy fleet is massive, their ships sleek and brimming with firepower. The humans know they have mere moments before the enemy realizes their path and closes in. Thorn orders a hard burn, pushing their engines to the limit, every second critical. The ship lurches as they speed away, but the enemy is relentless, sending squadrons of fighters in pursuit. Inside the ship, the tension is almost unbearable. The Zarvans huddle together, their expressions a mix of fear and uncertainty. They whisper among themselves, doubts and fears taking hold. Many of them believe they have only traded one form of death for another, that this escape is nothing more than a delay of the inevitable. Meanwhile, the human crew is stretched thin, their faces tight with concentration. Some are frantically working to keep the ship's system stable, others are scanning for enemy ships, their hands steady on weapons controls. The air is filled with the hum of machinery and the quiet, urgent conversations of those on the bridge. Captain Thorn senses the tension mounting and knows it must be addressed before it festers. He steps forward, addressing both his crew and the Zarvans. He speaks calmly but firmly, acknowledging their fears but reminding them why they are here, for survival, for hope, for a chance at a new beginning. He talks about trust, about unity, and how their only hope lies in working together. Thorn's words resonate, calming the storm of uncertainty, and for a brief moment, a fragile bond begins to form between the humans and the Zarvans. But there's no time to dwell on this moment of unity. The enemy's ships are gaining ground. Thorn quickly orders evasive maneuvers, and the human pilot guides their ship into a dense asteroid field. The rocks are massive and unpredictable, spinning wildly through space. The enemy follows undeterred, but the humans have the advantage here. They weave in and out of the asteroids, using the chaotic environment to their benefit. The enemy ships struggled to match their agility, smashing into rocks or firing blindly in the hope of a hit. The humans employ every trick they know. They release decoy drones to confuse enemy sensors, lay down reflective chaff to distort radar, and use the gravitational pull of the larger asteroids to slingshot themselves ahead. It's a deadly game of cat and mouse, every maneuver fraught with danger. The enemy is relentless, however, and their superior numbers begin to tell. The human ship is hit, the hull rattling with the impact, alarms blaring throughout the interior. But the crew holds their ground, pressing forward despite the odds. Suddenly, a realization hits: they need more time. Thorn looks to his crew, and before he can speak, Donovan steps forward. He's been through countless battles and knows what must be done. He volunteers to take a small shuttle, loaded with explosives, and create a diversion. The crew protests, knowing it's a suicide mission, but Donovan is resolute. He gives them a wry smile, saying it's just another day for an old soldier like him. The Zarvins watch in awe and disbelief as he boards the shuttle, understanding for the first time the depth of the humans' commitment to saving them. Donovan's shuttle detaches and heads straight toward the enemy. He maneuvers deftly, drawing their fire and leading a portion of the enemy fleet away from the main ship. As he gets closer, he detonates the explosives, causing a massive shockwave that disables several enemy ships and buys precious time for the human crew. The loss is felt immediately, a heavy silence settling over the bridge, but there's no time to mourn. They have to push on. Using the diversion, the human ship surges forward, engines blazing. The enemy, momentarily thrown into disarray, scrambles to regroup, but the humans press their advantage. Thorn orders a sharp turn toward a nearby gas giant, using its thick atmosphere as a temporary shield. The enemy hesitates, not wanting to risk their own ships in the turbulence. The human ship skims the surface, sensors screaming from the pressure, but they manage to emerge on the other side, leaving the enemy a step behind. The respite is brief. The enemy quickly resumes their pursuit, but Thorn knows they are close to the edge of the system. They just need a bit more distance. The ship shakes as another barrage narrowly misses, the shields flickering under the strain. Thorn gives the order for a full burn toward the hyperspace jump point. Every member of the crew is on edge, eyes locked on the monitors, counting down the seconds until they can make the jump. Finally, they reach the coordinates. The ship's hyperdrive begins to charge, a low hum filling the ship. The enemy is still closing in, firing relentlessly, desperate to stop them. The shields buckle, sparks fly from overloaded consoles, but the humans hold their ground. The hyperdrive reaches full power, and with a flash, the ship jumps into hyperspace, leaving the enemy behind. The sudden silence is almost overwhelming. They have escaped, but not without cost. The ship is damaged, systems are failing, and they've lost a valued comrade. Thorn knows they've made it, but just barely. He orders the crew to set a course for the safe haven, knowing they can't relax yet. They've outrun the enemy for now, but the galaxy is still a dangerous place. The crew begins repairs, exhausted but relieved. The Zarvins, for the first time in days, feel a glimmer of hope. They know they are not out of danger yet, but they also know they are not alone. The humans have shown them what it means to fight, to endure, and to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. As they move toward their unknown destination, they understand that this bond forged in battle will be their greatest strength in the challenges to come. The human ship emerges from hyperspace, battered but intact, approaching a small, hidden colony on the edge of the galaxy. The colony is nestled in the shadow of a dense nebula, a perfect place for those seeking refuge from the conflicts that rage across the stars. As they descend, the Zarvins peer out, seeing a new world filled with potential. It's a place far removed from the horrors they'd endured, a place where they can begin again. The humans guide the ship into a landing bay, where they are met with a warm, if cautious, welcome from the colony's inhabitants, a mix of outcasts, refugees, and pioneers who know the value of a second chance. The Zarvins step out onto solid ground, their faces a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. They are greeted with open arms, offered food, medical care, and words of encouragement. Slowly, they begin to understand the full extent of what the humans have done for them. The risks they took, the lives they lost, the sacrifices they made, all to save a race they barely knew. The realization sinks in, and for the first time in what feels like an eternity, the Zarvins feel something other than fear or despair. They feel gratitude, and with it, a renewed sense of purpose. As word of the daring rescue spreads across the galaxy, the reactions are swift and varied. Many are stunned that a small group of humans dared to defy the Galactic Federation's decision, risking everything to save a doomed race. Some see the humans' actions as reckless, a needless provocation that could destabilize the fragile peace. But others see something else, a reminder of what the Federation was meant to stand for, a beacon of hope in a galaxy that has grown cynical and cold. Whispers begin to circulate in diplomatic circles, questioning the priorities of the Federation. Some races quietly reconsider their alliances, wondering if they, too, could find themselves abandoned if deemed inconvenient. On the human ship, Captain Thorne and his crew are called before the Zarvin leaders. Arak, the Zarvin leader, steps forward. His voice is filled with emotion as he expresses their gratitude. He speaks of their initial distrust, their fear that they had traded one death for another, and how those fears were proven wrong. He thanks them not just for saving their lives, but for reminding them of what courage and compassion look like. The Zarvins offer to share their technological knowledge with the humans, a gesture of friendship and an acknowledgement that they now see them as more than just saviors, they are partners in a shared future. Captain Thorne, humbled by the Zarvins' words, steps forward to respond. He reflects on the mission, on the odds they faced, and the choices they made. He speaks of justice, compassion, and the responsibility to act when others refuse. He tells them that what they did was not just about saving lives but about upholding the values that define them as humans. He reminds everyone that they stood against impossible odds not because it was easy, but because it was the right thing to do. His words are simple but powerful, resonating deeply with all who hear them. He ends with a promise that they will continue to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, no matter the cost. As the days pass, the Zarvins begin to settle into their new home. They start to rebuild, with the humans by their side, assisting them with the resources and knowledge they need to create a new society. The bond between the two groups grows stronger, forged in the fires of shared struggle and mutual respect. The humans help to construct new habitats, share their skills, and work alongside the Zarvins in every task. The Zarvins, in turn, offer their advanced technology, helping to improve the colony's defenses, communications, and infrastructure. Together, they form a community built on trust, cooperation, and a shared vision for the future. There is a sense of optimism in the air, a feeling that perhaps, against all odds, they have found a way to create something better. The galaxy remains a dangerous place, filled with conflict and uncertainty, but here, on the edge of known space, there is a small but growing light. The Zarvins look to the stars, no longer with fear, but with hope and determination. They know there will be challenges ahead, but they also know they will not face them alone. For the humans, this mission has been more than just a rescue. It has been a reaffirmation of their values and their place in the galaxy. They have shown that even when others turn away, they will stand up and act. As they prepare to depart, leaving behind a part of themselves in this new community, they carry with them the knowledge that their actions have made a difference. They have chosen to be the light in a galaxy that often seems filled with darkness, and in doing so, they have inspired others to do the same. The Zarvins wave goodbye, knowing they have been given a chance to rebuild, to create a new story for themselves. The humans leave, knowing they have upheld the promise they made to themselves and to the galaxy, to fight for what is right, no matter how hard or how costly it might be. As the human ship lifts off, there is a sense of purpose that goes beyond words, a silent understanding that this is not an end, but a new beginning, for both races and perhaps, one day, for the entire galaxy.